Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astottara Sadasri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON's founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So today being Ekadashi, we will continue our reading from Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. This is volume 4. And we will be reading the chapter entitled, it's chapter 5 of volume 4, entitled A Lot of Ground to be Covered, which is recounting Srila Prabhupada's travel throughout India with his foreign disciples, especially from America and some parts of Europe, but mainly American disciples. So we just read how Srila Prabhupada was at the Kumbh Mela, the half Kumbh Mela, Ardha Kumbh Mela, and then now Srila Prabhupada, he went to Gorakhpur, very important place in India. And then from Gorakhpur, Prabhupada went for a few days to Benares on the invitation of Mr. Gaurakishore, who was inviting Srila Prabhupada to attend the 456th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's visit to Benares. Benares also is known as Varanasi. And Lord Chaitanya visited there at that time, 456 years previously, and many important events took place there with Lord Chaitanya, meeting significant devotees, the Goswamis and others. So he wanted to invite Srila Prabhupada as the main honored guest. So Srila Prabhupada went to Varanasi, Benares. So that section was completed, and now we will read from where Srila Prabhupada is about to leave Benares and return to Gorakhpur. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyas Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When Prabhupada was leaving Benares to return to Gorakhpur, many of his disciples went to the wrong train station. When Prabhupada and the few followers who waited at the correct train, while Prabhupada and a few followers waited at the correct train station, Kaushalya asked, "How do you like it here in Benares, Srila Prabhupada?" "It is all right," he said indifferently. "Did you have a nice rest?" she asked, trying to think of some positive aspect of the visit. "Rest I can have any time," said Srila Prabhupada, "but I like to be with my devotees." Surrounded by luggage, Prabhupada sat on the bench while Tamal Krishna and Shyam Sundar ran from the ticket office to the train and back. The train would soon leave, but where were the other devotees? Prabhupada watched as his spiritual sons argued with the conductor, telling him the train couldn't go until the other devotees arrived. "They do not know what they are doing," Srila Prabhupada smiled. Gorakhpur, February 10th, 1971. In Gorakhpur, there were a few very significant things that happened, and hopefully we'll be able to cover everything in today's reading. I think we could. Yeah, some very significant things that started in, one significant thing started in Gorakhpur in our movement, and it's still going on today. Anybody can remember what started in Gorakhpur? And we still do it practically every day in our movement. Okay, we'll come to that just now. We'll read about it. February 10th, 1971. On hearing that Prabhupada wanted to preach in Gorakhpur, Hanuman Prasad Podar, eminent head of the Gita Press Publishing Company, offered one of his properties, a 2-story house, his former residence, known as Krishna Niketan. Mr. Podar, who was bedridden in another house at Gorakhpur, had met Prabhupada in 1962, and he appreciated Prabhupada's mission. So before, in the first visit of Srila Prabhupada to Gorakhpur some days earlier, Prabhupada was staying with his disciple Ramananda Das, who he had met first in San Francisco some years previously, in 1961. And it was him, his family of 4 children, and Prabhupada and a few of his disciples. So it was very, very crowded, but Prabhupada was staying there. But now Hanuman Prasad Podar had offered his 2-story home, Krishna Niketan, to Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada received permission to use the Krishna Niketan, he acted quickly. It was not proper, he said, that the deities of Radha and Krishna he had brought from Calcutta had been packed away in a trunk after the Ardha Kumbh Mela. They had already been worshipped, so their worship should not be stopped. The deities have to be installed tomorrow, he said, and he put Kaushalya and Nanda Kumar in charge of the preparations. So here Prabhupada is also showing an example. Sometimes, he was so focused on worshipping Krishna and spreading Krishna's glories all over the world, that while doing that, he was never inattentive to properly respecting the Lord and the deity form of the Lord. That sometime earlier at the Kumbh Mela, they had worshipped these small deities of Radha and Krishna, but then probably because of situations not being suitable to take out the deities in worship, they were packed away. But as soon as the opportunity was presented that a good situation could be had, Srila Prabhupada instructed the deities must be worshipped. In other words, it's not proper just to, out of some sentiment, have deities, and then when you don't feel like, or it's uncomfortable, I don't worship them, let me put them away. But Prabhupada was showing the example that it's not proper to do that. Seeing that Nanda Kumar and Kaushalya needed more help, Prabhupada called for all his disciples, and soon 20 American devotees were scurrying about, preparing for the next day's festival. Prabhupada directed the devotees in cleaning the temple room from ceiling to floor, and in building the altar. He asked Himavati to donate her fanciest sari, which he hung like a curtain before the table that was to be the deity's altar. The altar needed a backdrop, he said, and while Kushalya stood on the table, he handed her pieces of colored fabric to arrange against the wall. So Srila Prabhupada himself was getting into it, helping, passing things on, directing how things should be decorated. The backdrop completed, Prabhupada took a rug a devotee had bought in Allahabad and placed it over the table altar. That night, Prabhupada surveyed the temple room. "Oh, it is very nice," he said. He retired to his room and 2 devotees stayed up all night sewing clothes for Radha and Krishna. The next morning, the deities were placed on the altar and the devotees resumed their worship, offering them prasadam and arati 6 times a day. This was Prabhupada's initial standard for worshipping the Radha Krishna deities, 6 times a day. The devotees were living in an ISKCON temple atmosphere for the first time since they had arrived in India, and their lives became regulated and secure. So this is what deity worship does. Deity worship has many purposes. Of course, one is to help us establish our relationship with Krishna, helps engage our mind and our senses, helps us understand cleanliness, but also very importantly, helps us become regulated. Especially in a temple, we find that, one of Srila Prabhupada's very close godbrothers, Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, who was known to be quite an authority on the process of archana, of deity worship, he taught that there are 2 ways in which we can worship the deity, the Archa Vigraha. One is at home and one is in the temple. And the difference between the home worship and the temple worship is that at home the deity is viewed as an invited, honored, very respectable guest in our homes. And in the temple, the deity is seen as the proprietor or the king of the place. So when one worships at home, then because it's an honored guest, the guest also adjusts to the situation and the capacity and the time constraints of the host. So whatever the host can best offer, the guest will accept. So sometimes we may only be able to worship the deity once a day, 1 or 2 artis or 1 or 2 offerings a day, and the guest will accept, or the deity will accept. But in the temple, it's the Lord's property. We follow His schedule, we follow His demands. So as a result, there are 6 offerings a day, cooked by specially trained persons, according to certain standards. So a lot of regulation and standards are required. So we find that this helps the devotees. Deity worship helps the devotees in this way. Engage all their mind, all their senses and their mind, helps them understanding cleanliness, and especially helping us to be regulated. Because every day there's Mangalarti at 4, 7 o'clock is this, 8 o'clock is this, 12:30. So it helps us form a regulated pattern. And Bhagavad Gita teaches us the importance of regulation in spiritual life. The devotees were living in an ISKCON temple atmosphere for the first time since they had arrived in India, and their lives became regulated and secure. So regulation helps give us security as well. Sometimes when we lead haphazard lives, one moment this, another day this, it becomes haphazard and we don't know what we are doing, we don't know what we are receiving and what our results are. So we become very secure. The weather warmed and the devotees, many of whom had exhausted their health in Allahabad, felt relief. The Gorakhpur temple was situated on several acres of agricultural land outside the city. It was a peaceful place. During the day, Prabhupada would rest as the sunshine came through the window and warmed his body. In the evenings, guests would come for kirtan, and Prabhupada lectured. speaking on the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada referred repeatedly to Sridhara Swami's commentary from the 12th century. So Prabhupada is speaking from the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically on the topics related to Ajamil and the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And Sridhar Swami, we know, is by Lord Chaitanya's glorification or description, he sees Sridhar Swami as the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Gaudiya and Vaishnava commentators on the Srimad Bhagavatam, they all defer to Sridhar Swami's commentary. So they base their commentaries and show respect to Sridhar Swami, who Lord Chaitanya said is the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sridhar Swami said that simply by chanting, without any regulative principles, one becomes liberated. So how is that? Sridhar Swami replies, also, that there are regulative principles. The idea is that chanting of the holy name is so powerful that it can immediately liberate the chanter. But because we are prone to fall down again, therefore there are regulative principles. Morning, noon and evening, we should daily chant Hare Krishna mantra with devotion and faith. By doing this, one can avoid volumes of miserable conditions of life simply by chanting. So one should be so much careful and faithful. You should know that as soon as you are chanting, Krishna is dancing on your tongue. Therefore, how much careful and respectful we should be. Each night Prabhupada would take the commentaries of Sridhara Swami as his text. So, Sridhara Swami gives this example, that without knowing that there is a very nice medicine, a man takes so many thousands of medicines. Similarly, the great stalwart leaders of religious principles, without knowing this Hare Krishna mantra, take so many troublesome ritualistic ceremonies. Actually, there is no need. The whole thing is, Sridhar Swami is giving the stress very strongly, that you can simply chant Hare Krishna mantra without understanding any ritualistic ceremonies. Sridhar Swami's commentary was filled with quotation from various scriptures about the supreme benefit of chanting the holy names of Krishna. Quote, then Sridhar Swami says, Akhila Cheshtitam. That means that any endeavor for pushing on Krishna's glories, that is as good as chanting the holy name. When you go out canvassing for pushing on this movement, people might think that you are not chanting. But suppose you are canvassing for life member, that topic is also as good as chanting Hare Krishna mantra, because it is Akhila Cheshtitam. One's life must be simply dedicated for Krishna's service. So here Sridhar Swami Prabhupada is quoting, is speaking about the absolute nature of the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. That just like if you are doing book distribution, going and raising awareness of Krishna consciousness, collecting Lakshmi for serving Krishna in the temple, making BTG subscriptions, making life members, Sridhar Swami is equating it to the chanting of the holy names. As good as your chanting of japa, as good as going out on Harinam Sankirtan, because it is all absolute ultimately. It is as good. But, as we'll read later on, a very interesting discussion, I'm not sure if it's here. Not sure if it's here. But as we'll read later, that although it's all absolute, it's equal to the chanting of the holy name, but it does not replace the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. We'll come to that. I hope I can remember to recount that exchange with Prabhupada, a young devotee had. Speaking before his Indian audiences, Srila Prabhupada also told about his preaching in the West. One evening he gave a personal history describing how his spiritual master, on their first meeting, had immediately told him to preach Lord Chaitanya's message to the English-speaking world. Quote, "At that time, I argued with him that we are a dependent nation, and who is going to hear about our message? So he defeated my argument. Yes, he was a learned scholar. So what I was a tiny boy. So I agreed that I was defeated." Prabhupada laughed softly. Prabhupada also told about his business years in Allahabad and how he again met his spiritual master and became initiated. He told of starting back to Godhead in 1944, of taking sannyas, and of finally traveling to America in 1965. He mentioned his struggles in New York City and how the first boys had joined him when he started his movement in a storefront on 2nd Avenue. Quote, "So practically we began work from 1968. In 1966 I started, but in 67 I became very much sick, so I came back to India. And again I went there in 68. So practically this propaganda work began vigorously from 1968. From 68, 69, 70, and this is 71. So 3-4 years, all these branches have grown up, and now practically throughout the whole continent of Europe and throughout America, they know what is Hare Krishna movement due to our propaganda." Early each morning before sunrise, Prabhupada would sit in the temple room before his disciples and lecture from Srimad Bhagavatam. And each morning the lights would go out, leaving everyone in darkness. It was a typical Indian power failure, and Prabhupada would stop lecturing while a devotee lit 2 candles by his Vyasasan and 2 candles on the altar. That happens to us sometimes, right? There's a class go on, the lights go out, we rush and put lights on the altar, try and create some amplification for the sound. So Prabhupada was also experiencing that in India. Long shadows would mix with the luminous gold of the Radha Krishna deities, and Prabhupada, wearing spectacles and holding open the Srimad Bhagavatam in his hand, would appear wonderfully mysterious. So yes, now comes to that part I asked you all, what is the one thing that started in Gorakhpur that we're still doing every day today? A very special thing. This is it. One morning, Srila Prabhupada sang a new song, Jaya Radha Madhava. So it started in February 1971 in Gorakhpur. One morning, Srila Prabhupada sang a new song, Jaya Radha Madhava. "I will teach you this song," he said. Reciting the first line, he had the devotees repeat it again and again. One line at a time, he went through the song. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari, Yasodha Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. They should know it, he told them, by the next morning. Prabhupada was the teacher, right? He taught them line by line repetitively that morning, and he said, by the next morning they should all know the song. Should we do that every day with Bhagavatam verses? Do it, and the next morning we have to have a test on it. However, I added the word however, only a few devotees managed to memorize the song. So the next morning, Prabhupada went through it again, line by line. During the evening lecture, he explained the meaning of the song. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Krishna is enjoying in Vrindavan. He is Bihari, he is the enjoyer of the kunjas of Vrindavan. That is the real picture of God, simply enjoying. The Vrindavan Leela of Krishna is the perfect presentation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is simply enjoying. all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the gopis, the cowherd boys, Maharaj Nanda, Yashoda, everyone is simply anxious how to make Krishna happy. They have no other business. The residents of Vrindavan have no other business than to satisfy Krishna. And Krishna has no other business. Yashoda Nandan Braja Jana Ranjan Yamuna Tira Vanachari. He is acting as the little son of Yashoda, and his only business is how to please the residents of Vrindavan. Yashoda Nandan Braja Jana Ranjan Yamuna Tira Vanachari. He is wandering in the forest of Vrindavan on the bank of the Yamuna. This is the actual picture of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Brahma, Indra, big demigods, they are also bewildered. They are sometimes mistaken how this cowherd boy can be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like some of us think like that. But those who are thinking like that, for them also there is manifestation of Krishna's supremacy. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Although he is engaged in pleasing the residents of Braja, when there is need, he can lift up the Govardhan hill at the age of 7 years. Or he can kill the Putana at the age of 3 months. So many demons used to visit daily. Krishna used to go with the calves and cows with his friends in the forest, and every day Kamsa used to send a demon to kill him. Aghasura, Bakasura, Dhenukasura, so many. So also, Krishna is playing just like a cowherd boy. His supreme mercy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never absent there. That is God. God is not created by meditation. God is God. God is never manufactured. We should know this. On the third morning, after introducing Jaya Radha Madhava, Prabhupada again sang it with the devotees responding. Then he began to explain it further. Radha Madhava, he said, have their eternal loving pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He stopped speaking. His closed eyes flooded with tears, and he began gently rocking his head. His body trembled. Several minutes passed, and everyone in the room remained completely silent. Finally, he returned to external consciousness and said, now just chant Hare Krishna. After this, the Radha Krishna deities in Gorakhpur became known as Shri Shri Radha Madhava. Yeah, so this is very significant in our movement. One of the initial times that Prabhupada himself showed his spiritual nature, his ecstatic love for Krishna, and also he introduced this very significant song into our movement that we honor Srila Prabhupada by chanting it every day before Srimad Bhagavatam class. Kaushalya would regularly wash the temple floor while Srila Prabhupada gave his Srimad Bhagavatam lecture. One morning, Prabhupada interrupted his lecture. Just see this girl, he said. Kaushalya was down at the other end of the room scrubbing. This is first class service. Kaushalya at that time, she must have been 18 or 19 years old, I think. Maybe maximum 20. Yeah, maybe 19. American girl. And she was with the party doing all sorts of significant services. A year or two later, we'll read how she arranged big programs in Jaipur. I was doing amazing preaching in Jaipur as well for Srila Prabhupada. A 20-year-old girl. It's quite amazing how empowered these devotees were by Lord Chaitanya to please Prabhupada. The next day, Prabhupada called Kaushalya forward. Every morning you are washing the floor so nicely. So the previous day, the day earlier, Prabhupada, what did he do? He stopped the Bhagavatam class and pointed to her, recognizing her first class service. The next day, Prabhupada called Kaushalya forward Every morning you are washing the floor so nicely, he said. But this morning you are washing the floor like a crow takes a bath. Prabhupada shook his hand as if flicking water about. You do not know how to wash the floor. I am going to show you. Prabhupada came down from his Vyasasana and walked to the other end of the room, followed by all the devotees. Show and tell was happening now, demonstration. Where is your bucket? Kaushalya brought over her bucket. Prabhupada asked for a rag. She gave him hers. He then crouched down and started scrubbing. This is how you wash the floor, he said, with lots of water, and you do it a section at a time. It should be done in 2 stages. First with a wet rag, and then with a rang rag, squeezed rag. The devotee stood in amazement, watching. Several times Prabhupada repeated the procedure, washing a section of the floor and then drying it, careful not to touch the clean area with his feet. See, he said, that is expert. So this is our founder Acharya. You may get other acharyas, other leaders of institutions, and they may have certain styles of doing things, but Prabhupada was very detailed and specific at the same time. He wanted things done a certain way, even down to a simple act as cleaning a floor. This is how he wants it done. And we can consider that our approach to honoring Prabhupada is to learn and hear about how he did things and try our very best to follow similarly. How he worshipped the deities, follow similarly. How he cooked, follow similarly. And not allow our so-called intelligence and our so-called experience to override or supersede how Srila Prabhupada did things. Try our best. Then we more closely align with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, that is not to suggest that we must lose our individuality. Prabhupada liked eating pineapple with salt. Or orange juice, he put some salt in his. And your tongue may not like that. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm a follower of Prabhupada, I must have salt in this or salt in that. That's becoming a little impersonal and merging into Prabhupada's unique tastes. But at least other things, how he did things, how he managed, how he kept records, how he cleaned, how he cooked, how he worshipped the deity. These things at least we should try and follow. Very, very importantly. Very importantly, we should try and do that. When Tamal Krishna requested Prabhupada to move on to Bombay and bigger preaching, Prabhupada replied, let us see if Krishna wants us to have this place. Hansadutta also became restless to preach, and Prabhupada sent him with a group of brahmacharis to Aligarh and Agra. Actually, here, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was Tamal Krishna Das at that time, he wasn't a sannyasi, he was also getting impatient. We need to do big things. We're just here in Gorakhpur, nothing much is really happening. And Prabhupada was more settled because he was trying to get land to build a university and build a temple on the university land and then preach to students. But it was taking some time. And then Srila Prabhupada responded to Tamal Krishna with this famous statement that you have your plans, I have my plans, but Krishna has his plans. So Prabhupada was just being patient and waiting to see what Krishna would direct. Little appeared to be happening in Gorakhpur, but Prabhupada had plans. He was negotiating with the university authorities for land for constructing a temple. Prabhupada says, if we are successful in our attempt, it will be unique in all the world, and soon more and more college campuses would follow. And if we can establish a seat of Krishna consciousness, then students may take their doctorate degree in Krishna consciousness and go out and preach all over the world. Prabhupada had 3 goals: to reach the Gorakhpur University students, to introduce kirtan into the factories, and to introduce kirtan into the homes. The main obstacle was lack of commitment from the local people. Many were willing to attend his evening lectures, but to actually surrender time, money and energy in the service of Krishna was more difficult. At least the Radha Krishna temple was lively, and Prabhupada hoped the directors of Gita Press would turn the Krishna Niketan building over to ISKCON permanently. So this was Prabhupada's mission. He had 3 goals in Gorakhpur, but the main one clearly was to establish a temple on the university land and to preach to students. Actually, sometimes we hear about Prabhupada's visit to South Africa, and we often hear that Prabhupada had 2 main instructions. One was to build a temple in Durban, and the other was to establish a Rath Yatra festival. But the devotees close to Prabhupada around that time in his visit in South Africa also say that one of the things, or the aspiration that excited Prabhupada the most was the possible opportunity to bring Prabhupada's scientist disciple, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and get him a post at the University of Westville, in Durban, so that he could then develop preaching to the academics and the students. That far more than any other thing in South Africa, Prabhupada was very excited about that possibility. We don't hear about that much. We only hear about the temple and Rath Yatra. But this, according to the devotees then, say this was Prabhupada's he was very excited about this opportunity. So who knows, maybe someday that can actually happen. We can have a place at the university, we can have a program an academic program at the universities, teaching students about Krishna consciousness as an accredited course. That should be one of our goals. Prabhupada continued lecturing morning and evening. For 3 consecutive evenings, he spoke on a single verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, defeating the Mayavad arguments that the absolute truth is ultimately impersonal Brahman. Quote, the Mayavadi philosophers say that the absolute is impersonal and that there is no different energy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's challenge is that the absolute truth has got multi-energies. Suppose someone has a big business, a big factory. So if the proprietor says, quote, I am all pervading over this factory, unquote, that is correct. Take for example Birla. They say Birla's factory. Birla's name is there. Although Birla is a person and he is not personally present in the factory, everyone says Birla's factory. That means Birla's money, Birla's energy is there. If there is any loss in that factory, the suffering goes to Birla. Or if there's any gain in the factory, profit goes to Birla. Therefore, Birla's energy is there in the factory. Similarly, the whole creation is a manifestation of Krishna. Everything there is Krishna, His energy. He is represented by His energy. That is simultaneously one and different. Achintya, Beda, Abeda, Tattva. Discussing preaching in America, Prabhupada said the Western world was 99% in the modes of ignorance and passion. Although America was the richest nation on earth, its youth were becoming hippies, much to the dismay of parents and government leaders. So despite their wealth, they were unhappy. They were ripe, however, for understanding spiritual knowledge. This is causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Now you can see that these boys, when they are chanting, how they are in ecstasy. They are immediately on the transcendental platform. Not only here, everywhere they are chanting, in every temple. The advantage of these boys and girls is that they have no hodgepodge in their head. They directly accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they directly accept the instruction of Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, they are making advancement. Their fortune is that their brain is not congested with hodgepodge ideas. They have given up all other occupations and accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in India, we can also do that. What is the difficulty? We must do this. Just accept this. Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam, and surrender unto him. Prabhupada celebrated the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in Gorakhpur. At the morning gathering, he said, we should honor this day and very respectfully pray to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami that, quote, we are engaged in your service, so give us strength, give us intelligence. We are being guided by your servant, unquote. So in this way, we have to pray. And I think in the evening we shall distribute prasadam. There will be so many guests coming, so they can be distributed prasadam, unquote. Prabhupada said life members and other friends should be invited for the flower offering at noon. One of the devotees asked about the feast. Prabhupada, cooks listen to this very carefully. Prabhupada replies, feasting means puri and halava and a vegetable and chutney. That's all, 4 things. Make it simple. What are the 4 things? Puri, halava, a vegetable, and chutney. Tamar Krishna, Prabhupada, you want us to offer a feast to your Guru Maharaj at noon time? A special plate of feast? Prabhupada, not a special plate. The process is that whatever we offer to the deity, that is offered to Guru. And Guru offers to his Guru. In this way, it goes to Krishna. We don't directly offer to Radha Krishna. No, we have no right. Nor does Krishna accept in that way. The pictures of the acharyas, why are they there? Actually, you have to offer the plate to your Guru, and he will offer to his Guru, and he offers to his Guru. His Guru. In this way, it will go to Krishna. That is the process. You cannot directly approach Krishna or predecessor acharyas. That is not possible. So that day, after Prabhupada had honored the noon feast, then his servant was Nanda Kumar, Prabhupada's American disciple Nanda Kumar. He came out of Prabhupada's room with the plate with some of the remnants of Prabhupada, and he said, Srila Prabhupada said 2 things. That my Guru Maharaj, meaning Srila Prabhupada, meaning Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, is very pleased with you all. And second, he said, the feast was so wonderful that I could not control my senses. Nanda Kumar came and told all the devotees that is what Srila Prabhupada had said. So now, Satsvarupa Maharaj recounts a very important meeting in Gorakhpur. As we read earlier, Gorakhpur was the base of the Gita Press. Some of you may have heard of the Gita Press in India, a very, very famous publishing company focused on printing and distributing Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so on. And they would collect donations and print simple copies, small books on cheap paper, so it could be widely distributed, practically free of cost to everyone. And hundreds of thousands of books were being distributed that way by the Gita Press. Just translations, not like how Prabhupada's books are with commentaries. And I mean, not translations, but in the Hindi language and sometimes in the English language also, they were distributing very, very widely all over India. So the founder of the Gita Press in Gorakhpur was known as, his name was Hanuman Prasad Podar, a very, very saintly person. One day Prabhupada visited Hanuman Prasad Podar. Mr. Podar had been gravely ill for some time, but he was able to sit up and speak briefly with Prabhupada. As the pioneer of the Kalyana magazine, which printed installments of the Mahabharata and other Vedic classics, Hanuman Prasad Podar was a world-famous patron of Indian religious thought. His inexpensive Hindi Bhagavad Gita translation had been distributed by the millions, so that even a poor man could have a copy of Bhagavad Gita. Mr. Podar had been a friend to Prabhupada when in 1962 Prabhupada had come to him in Gorakhpur and shown him his manuscript for the first volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Appreciating the importance of the work, Mr. Podar, by his word of approval, had helped Prabhupada get a donation for its printing from the Delhi industrialist, Mr. Dalmia. Now, almost 10 years later, Prabhupada was showing Mr. Podar his recently published books, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, The Nectar of Devotion, and his magazine, Back to Godhead. Mr. Podar was impressed, and he and Prabhupada exchanged their sincere appreciation for each other's work. So now Satsvarupa Maharaj quotes Mr. Surya Kant Fogla. He says, Hanuman Prasad Podar was my grandfather. He was very much ill at the time Prabhupada came here to meet him in his bedroom upstairs. There are certain things which cannot be explained, but they were talking in the language of their eyes. My grandfather expressed some gratitude, some affection, some regard by his eyes, and Prabhupada's reply was also in the same way. The appreciation from both sides could easily be seen and appreciated by the persons who were present. A lot of Prabhupada's disciples were there, and everyone was almost in tears when those two saints, great people, met and talked to each other. They were talking about the spiritual world, and they were praising each other for their deeds. My grandfather also was saying that what Prabhupada has done, it is unforgettable for anyone in the world. Because to take our Indian culture to Western countries, the credit entirely goes to our beloved Prabhupada. And he was the only person who took Radha Krishna and the holy name outside in such a way that nobody else could and will be able to in the future. Since Mr. Podar was ill and weak, Prabhupada left after about half an hour. Prabhupada had spent 2 weeks in Gorakhpur, and now he was eager to go to Bombay. Leaving 2 disciples behind to attend to the deity worship and continue preaching in Gorakhpur, he left. Okay, we'll stop at this point, because now it goes on to another section. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Yes, Ravindra Swarup.
Hare Krishna. At the time when Prabhupada was present in Durban, did he have a desire to build Sri Radharanath temple?
To go and see?
Did he have a desire to build, to have a temple here in Durban, Sri Radharanath?
Definitely, he expressed a wish that a nice temple be built in Durban. He didn't specifically say the names Radha, Radhanath. He didn't specifically say here in Chatsworth, in this place. He didn't say that specifically, but he expressed his desire that this should be done, and his followers made it happen very, very quickly. Yeah. I know sometimes there's that romantic idea that Prabhupada was driving past here, he pointed at this land. That didn't happen. It didn't happen like that. But he expressed a desire and the devotees fulfilled it. That's very glorious. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, actually Prabhupada the closest he came to Chatsworth was the Lakshmi Narayan temple.
Mm.
But he didn't specifically say to come right to this place. But he expressed a desire for a temple, and it's true. Yeah. And of course the airport was nearby also, he landed there.
Yeah, the airport, he passed this way, sort of, on the freeway, because we had the old, what was it called, the Louis Botha airport.
Right.
Louis Botha. Prabhupada landed there, correct. Yeah. Oh yeah, the one interesting, very instructive pastime that happened in Gorakhpur with Prabhupada was where Prabhupada showed how important it was to chant 16 rounds of japa every day. We were discussing how Akhila Cheshtitam, how going out and preaching about Krishna, going out and doing Harinam, Sankirtan, book distribution, signing life members, they also considered to be chanting the holy name of Krishna. So one should not minimize those, showing that chanting is different or greater, that it's all absolute. But we are making the point that even though it's the same as chanting, it doesn't mean chanting should be neglected. So what had happened in Gorakhpur, actually some months before, a young American boy had joined up the devotees and was touring with Prabhupada. And at Gorakhpur, he asked Srila Prabhupada a very interesting question, that if all service is absolute, why do I have to chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada gave some explanations, but this young man wasn't fully getting it, And then eventually Prabhupada, it's described, he stood up very straight in his Vyasasana, to be very serious, and said, why do you have to chant 16 rounds? Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants you to. A very strong answer. But still it was a little, he wasn't convinced, this young boy. And he said, but for example, if I had a whole day of service and then late at night I'm trying to finish my rounds, but I find that I'm not very focused, maybe I should just sleep, like that. He was making this point that I did a whole day of service, so what if I kind of didn't finish my rounds? It's okay. And then Srila Prabhupada made a very telling statement. He said, even for you, if it means that you have to eat and sleep the whole day, but you chant your 16 rounds, this is your special prerogative. He said, he's giving him a special arrangement, that no matter if you don't do anything else, if you only have to sleep, but he gives you time to chant 16 rounds, just do that. So he was making this point. But then again, devotees and whoever's listening online, he said, this is a special prerogative. In one sense, if one is nicely chanting 16 rounds, then everything else must follow. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books, developing a compassionate desire to spread Krishna consciousness to others, seeing the need to expand the mission, seeing the need to help others. It must arise if one is nicely chanting Hare Krishna. Isn't that right? Because what will chanting of Hare Krishna do? It will purify the consciousness. It will bring us closer to Krishna. It will want to make us better servants of Krishna. And the ultimate servant of Krishna, who's the dearmost servant of Krishna? Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita. What does he say? One who shares this message that I'm teaching you, Arjuna, to others, that is my dearmost servant. So, if one is really nicely chanting Hare Krishna, even if he's sleeping the whole day, in this case, special prerogative, from that chanting, so many things will start to manifest, will come up. So that was this boy's special prerogative, to show that even though all service is absolute, still the authorities have given us this process, we must follow it.
Yeah,
Yes.
the extension of our chanting is devotional service. Because we are asking Krishna for service. Chanting Hare Krishna means we are asking for service. Actually begging for service. So yeah.
Yes, it is service and it is the call for service. It is service and a call for service as well. All right, we'll stop here now. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada lilamrta ki, Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare.